Welcome to Eyes, your Dutch uncle, where we talk about truth, life, love, family, healing, and everything in between. There's no sugarcoating, there's no pretenses, just honest conversation from someone who has lived long enough to tell the truth and still laugh about it. I'm Hoomes, also known as Eyes, your Dutch uncle, and this is your first time coming in. I appreciate you. I appreciate you tremendously. And if you've been here before, you already know you're always welcomed in my world. Now, over these last few episodes, we've built a foundation. And we talked about sibling rivalry. We talked about why siblings compete. And we talked about role parents can play in family dynamics. And last week, we looked at some of those experiences through the eyes of the child. But now, children are grown, and the question becomes what happens when some of that hurt grows up with them, when resentment grows up, and what happens when family roles grow up, and what happens when those unresolved issues follows everybody into adulthood. Because sometimes, baby, the child argument may end, but the relationship never recovers. And time can create distance, but distance does not always mean the problem was resolved. And I want you to understand that distance does not always mean the problem was resolved. So today, we're going to talk about what happens when sibling rivalry lasts a lifetime. And we're going to talk about estrangement. And not to tell anybody they need to run out and call somebody, and not to tell anybody they need to reconcile, but to understand how families get there. And maybe, just maybe, what an honest conversation can change. Let's get busy. Welcome to my world. Now, this is one of those conversations that can get uncomfortable because when we talk about family estrangement, people want a simple explanation. What happened? They fell out, they got mad, they stopped talking. Okay, but what happened before that? What happened 5 years before, 10 years before, 20 years before? Because sometimes the thing that finally breaks a relationship is not the thing that created the problem. It is just the thing that finally exposed it. Maybe the argument today is about caregiving or about finances or about funeral. Maybe it's about inheritance. Maybe somebody says something at Thanksgiving. Maybe somebody didn't show up. Maybe somebody's spouse got involved. But underneath all of that, there may be years of hurt that nobody ever dealt with. And at some point, as adults, we have something we did not have when we were children: choices. We can decide whether we want to continue carrying something. We can decide whether we need a conversation. We can decide whether we need a boundary or boundaries. We can decide whether we want reconciliation. And sometimes we can even decide the reconciliation is not what is best for us. You see, that's a hard decision, but it is an adult decision. So today, I want us to look at how siblings get from childhood conflict to adult distance, to sometimes not speaking at all. And I'm going to use some of my own family history because, oh boy, baby, I've lived some of this. Let me give you a little background. My parents divorced when I was 15, and when that happened, life changed. I was 15, sister Tammy was 12, Alicia was 5. So I had 3 year difference between Tammy and myself, and there was a 10-year difference between Alicia and me. And After the divorce, I had to take on some of the responsibilities for my sisters. I had to take care of them. Now, the first year we lived with my daddy, and then things started changing. Tammy and Alicia eventually went to live with Mama. I went to live with my uncle. And then a year later, I lived with my grandmother. Then I went back and lived with my daddy and my stepmother. So even though we were siblings, we were not all having the same experience anymore. And that matters because when family changes, children change, relationships change, circumstances change. And sometimes by the time everybody gets back together again, you're not the same individuals you were before. There were some serious things going on in the family. There were allegations. There were issues involving abuse. Some things I know and some things I don't. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know everything when I don't. What I can say is that what Tammy and Alicia experienced was totally different from what I experienced. And that's just a fact. And for a long time, I did not understand the way I understand it now. I had my relationship with Mama, relationship with Daddy, and Tammy and Alicia had theirs. But those relationships shaped us differently. That is one of the things I had to understand later in life. You can come from the same family and still have completely different relationships with the same parents. But that doesn't mean that one person is lying. And it doesn't mean that someone is automatically right and someone is automatically wrong. It just means the experience was different. And in my family, what would call the real breakdown between siblings did not start when we were little children fighting over toys. It started later as we were getting older. And all those different experiences started colliding as a divorce, the different homes, different relationships, the hurt, the allegations, the estrangement between parents and children, and all of that started becoming part of the adult family. And see, that is what I want you to understand. Sometimes sibling rivalry does not look dramatic in childhood. Sometimes the family changes, people go separate ways, and the conflict does not fully show itself until everyone is grown. Over time, siblings can stop calling and stop visiting, stop sharing information, stop knowing what is happening in each other's lives. And eventually that distance starts feeling normal. See, I haven't seen Leisha in over 40 years. And to be perfectly honest, I don't miss her. I've been back from Florida for 8 years, and I have not had a relationship with Tammy during that time either. And to be perfectly honest, I don't miss that relationship. Now, people may hear me say that and think, well, that sounds kind of harsh. Okay, you can think that, but you have to understand something. Not every relationship needs to continue simply because you share blood. And that was something I had to learn. Recently, I sent Tammy an email. I apologize for any miscommunications, misunderstandings, and any harsh words that were passed because I have come to understand that her experience of mom and daddy was different from mine. And that does not mean I want reconciliation. And those are two different things. I can recognize that people experience some things differently. I can apologize for my part. And yet I can still decide for my health, for my sanity, my mental sanity, and for my peace. I don't want a relationship. And that is one of the things that people get confused about. They think that if you apologize, you must want to get back together. Lies. Nada. No. They can think if you forgive, you must want to sit down at Thanksgiving dinner together. No. And they may think if you understand someone's experience, that means you agree with everything they did. No. And sometimes understanding gives you clarity, and that clarity helps you make a healthier decision. And that's what adulthood gives you. Oh boy. And let's talk about family roles. Whew, baby. Families have long memories. You can be 60 years old, have a career, have a house, have children, even grandchildren and great grandchildren. You've gone through therapy, you've changed your entire life, and you walk back into that family gathering, and somebody treats you like you're 16. Family will mess you up quicker than anybody because they have your history. They know your history. And yes, you know theirs. They know who you were. They remember every stupid thing you did. They remember every bad decision. And sometimes, unfortunately, they refuse to update the picture. Maybe you were the responsible one, or the troublemaker, or the black sheep, and maybe you were the favorite. Maybe you were the one everybody depended on, and you were the peacemaker. And yet, years later, people, family, still expect you to play that same role. And at some point, you have to be strong, be able to say, what I was what I was, and what I am now is what I am now. You can accept who I am today, or you can refuse to accept who I am today. Either way, I'm going to be okay. And when that one person starts changing, you see, you have to understand everybody's not going to celebrate with those changes because some people are comfortable with the version of you that served them. They don't necessarily want the healthier version. They like the one who was always to say yes. They like the one who fixed everything or the one who took the blame. They like the one who kept the peace. Then one day you say no, and everybody loses their damn mind. And see, that is where boundaries come in. Sometimes adult siblings are not really fighting about what happened today. They're fighting through the pain of what happened yesterday. And somebody makes a joke or make a little comment. And there's always those who like to roll their eyes. And someone says something under their breath, and baby, all of a sudden, that old trigger goes off. Now, you're sitting here thinking, I'm not putting up with this bullshit today. No, sir, not today. No, ma'am. And everybody else may be thinking, what happened? Nothing happened today. But see, that's the problem. Something happened 20 years ago and it was never addressed. And that is why certain words show up in family arguments. You always, you never, mama always, daddy never, nobody ever. When you start hearing always and never, best believe there's history in that conversation. And when people do not communicate honestly, they start hearing everything through their old pain. And you're not listening to what your sibling is saying now, you're listening to them through what happened before. And then family gatherings get really interesting. Lord have mercy. You go back into the environment where some of the shit started, the house, the relatives, traditions, jokes, comments. And then you always have that messy ass cousin, that petty aunt, the one sitting over there stirring the pot because they do not have enough going on in their own life. You know who they are. Every every family has at least one, and sometimes three. After they start, they sit back and after they start everything, like, I don't know why everybody's upset. Oh, you know exactly why. You started the shit. And see, that is how a conflict between two siblings actually become a family conflict because people choose sides. Spouses get involved, children get involved, cousins get involved. And see, now you have the next generation is dealing with the same shit they did not even start. Something else we have to talk about is trauma. And I am not here to diagnose anybody. I am not a therapist. I am not a counselor. I am not a psychologist. But I know families go through things like divorce and abuse, addiction, illness, death, loss. And just because siblings go through the same family event does not mean they experience it the same way. See, I saw that in my own family. Tammy and Alicia experienced things with Mom and Jim, who was my stepfather, that I did not experience the same way. I knew there was verbal abuse. I knew there was physical abuse. Now, there were other allegations that I cannot personally verify, so I'm not going to sit here and speak on what I do not know. And once I really understood that, I stopped expecting them to feel the way I felt. Shared trauma does not automatically create shared understandings. Sometimes it brings siblings closer, and sometimes it drives them apart. But keep in mind, both can be true. And sometimes it takes therapy, age, life experience. And before you can look back and say, oh, now I understand why I responded like that, I have had moments in my life where I had to do that. I had to deal with fear, illness, my own morality. When I was in college, I developed serious physical problems. I was eventually diagnosed with myasthenia gravis. And at one point, I was giving a frightening prognosis. I was young, I was in college, I was preparing for my future. And suddenly I had to face the possibility that my future may not look the way that I thought it would. See, that experience changed me. But see, I had a praying grandmama, and she told me to go pray, talk to God like He was right there, tell Him what I was afraid of, tell Him what I needed, and I did. And when I came back, she basically told me, "You gave it to Him. Now stop talking about it." We talked about it. See, that taught me something. It gave me perspective. When you've had to look at your own life, your own morality, your own fears, it changes the way you look at some things. It helped shape how I dealt with conflict and how I deal with family and how I decided what is worth carrying. Now, understand, I am not telling you what you need to believe spiritually. That's not my place. I am telling you what helped me. I believe in the power of prayer. I believe in the power of hugs. And I believe that sometimes life will force you to decide what you are willing to keep carrying. Now, let's talk about caregiving. And whew, if there are any unresolved family issues, an agent parent can bring all of them right back to the surface. Who is going to take mama to the doctor? Who is handling the medications? Who is paying what? Who is showing up? Who is checking in? Who is making the medical decisions? Who is responsible for what? And suddenly, those old family roles pop up again. The responsible child becomes a caregiver. The one who always disappears, the one who lives further away may contribute financially. The one who lives closer may be doing the everyday work. And everybody may have a different idea of what fair means. I watched that with my grandmother. My Aunt Debbie ended up carrying a great deal of responsibility for taking care of her mother, my grandmother. And caregiving is hard. And if you have never done it, experienced it directly or indirectly, baby, you just don't know. It is exhausting. It is physical, emotionally, mentally, it's everything. Yeah, I used to go down every other weekend to give my aunt a break and give her time to go to the country, let her catch her breath. Because, see, caregivers need somebody to see them too. And here's where families get in trouble. One sibling may say, I'm doing everything. And yet another one may say, well, I'm contributing money. And another one has the audacity to say, well, I live too far away. And here comes another one, nobody asked me. And another may not have had a relationship with the parent to begin with. So, what actually is fair? And that is not always an easy answer. And there's not an easy answer. Because, see, fair and equal are not always the same thing. Everybody may not be able to give the same amount of time or may not have the same amount of money. And everybody may not have the same relationship with the parent. But that is why you need conversations before the crisis. Not every time everybody gets sick, or not when everybody's already exhausted, not when mama's in the hospital and everybody's standing in the hallway arguing. You talk, you converse before. Who is going to do what? What are your parents' wishes? What happens if they need assisted living? Who has the paperwork? Where's the insurance information? And oof, what are the end of life wishes? Now, see, no one wants to talk about death, and I understand, but death does not care whether you want to talk about it. Planning does not take away the grief, but it can take away some of the confusion. Oh, and then God help us, Lord. Here comes the inheritance. And trust and believe everyone has an opinion. Oh, I did the most. I sacrificed the most. I should get more. Baby, sit down. Take a deep breath. Somebody's going to get more, and sometimes someone is going to get less, and sometimes somebody's going to get the house or the jury or the watch and photographs and land. And sometimes the biggest fight is over something that is not worth money at all because sentimental value is different. That ring might be worth $50, but it belonged to mama. And that chair may be old, but daddy sat in it every night. That house may just be property to one sibling, and yet to another sibling, that house represents their childhood. So sometimes siblings are not fighting over what the parent actually left behind. They're fighting over what they believed the decision said about their worth. Why did you get the house? Why did she choose you? Why did you get more? And all of a sudden, money gets mixed up with love. And inheritance gets mixed up with favoritism. And caregiving gets mixed up with entitlement. And grief gets mixed up with anger. Now you have everybody fighting during one of the most emotional times in a family's life. And then here comes those cousins, and the spouses, and that messy ass aunt is back. And whew, before long, you have the attorneys, you have a will, you have estates, you have probate, you have court. And people say, how did this happen? Sometimes the money started the argument, but the childhood history supplied the emotion. So, why do some siblings finally stop speaking? There is no one answer. Sometimes there's betrayal, sometimes disrespect, then you have years of conflict, and sometimes boundaries have been violated too many times, and sometimes somebody simply gets tired. And trust, huh? I understand tired. Sometimes you reach a place where a continuing relationship keeps, I mean, it just, con- you reach a place where continuing relationship just is more harmful than stepping away. Now, I've cut people off. I know, I know that about myself, and sometimes people do not understand that, and that's okay. But understand what I have to do, what is best for me, and not what's best for you. It's not supposed to be. So here's a question: does silence protect you, or is silence keeping you from a conversation that might actually help? Now, see, those are two different things. Does silence protect you, or is silence keeping you from a conversation that might actually help? Now, not speaking is not always unhealthy, and sometimes separation is an appropriate boundary, especially when abuse, disrespect, and sometimes harmful behavior is involved. But sometimes people stop speaking because neither one knows how to begin again. Months pass, years, and decades pass, and everybody keeps telling themselves their own version of the story. And then one day you sit down and you think, how in the hell did we get here? Did we stop speaking because this relationship could not be saved? Or did we stop speaking because neither one of us knew how to start the conversation? And see, oof, that is a hard question. If there's going to be a conversation, someone has to make the first move. And that does not mean you have to call your siblings today. I'm not even suggesting you do that. Some relationships may not be safe. Some relationships may need distance. But if a conversation is appropriate, someone has to be willing to talk, and someone has to be willing to listen. Now, not listen so that you can interrupt, not listen so you can prepare your comeback, but listen. If someone says, that hurt me, you may not remember it the same way, and you may not have intended it that way, but that is still their experience. And sometimes the conversation starts with, I did not know I hurt you. I did not understand that is how you experienced it. I'm sorry for my part. Help me understand. Now, you see, before I turned 60, I told the people I was close to, if there's anything or something you need to say to me, you better say it now. If I hurt you, you better say it. If I disrespected you, if there is a question you need answered, let's have a conversation. Because I did not want to keep dragging old things into every new year of my life. And at some point, I wanted to say, we talked about it, we dealt with it. Now, what are we going to do? And maybe that is a question for you, not who was right, not who started it, but what childhood issue still affects your family today? Has anybody ever honestly talked about it? And if not, what is keeping that conversation from happening? Because healing often begins when someone is willing to have the first honest conversation. And understand that doesn't necessarily mean reconciliation. That's two things, two different things. not necessarily everyone becomes close again because the conversation leads to understanding, sometimes an apology, sometimes boundaries, sometimes peace, sometimes clarity. But honesty gives you somewhere to start. Before I let you go, I appreciate you spending this time with me. I know this was not an easy topic. Family estrangement is extremely difficult. And if something we talked about today brought up your own family, your brother, your sister, your childhood, take some time with it. You do not have to solve everything tonight. And if you have a question, you have a situation, or something you want your Dutch uncle's perspective on, go to the website and visit Ask OZZz. Send the question, tell me what is on your mind, and you never know who else may be dealing with the same thing. And while you're on the website, check out the companion blog post for this episode. You will also find 2 books we're recommending throughout the season: Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend, and Adult Sibling Relationships by Jeffrey L. Gruff and Michael E. Worley. Amazon affiliate links are available in the companion blog post. And if you purchase through those links, the podcast may receive a small compensation or a small commission at no additional cost to you. And please do not forget about our featured artist spotlight. And if you are a musician or a poet, spoken word artist, comedian, DJ, or another creative, go to the website and tell us about what you're doing. And if your business or organization aligns with the conversations we are having here, you can also learn more about OZZz podcast sponsorship opportunities. Now, let me remind you, I am not a therapist. I am not a psychologist. I do not have all the answers. I am your Dutch uncle, and I have lived some life, and I've made some mistakes, and I've gone through therapy, and I've had to look at myself, and I'm still learning. So everything we talk about here is intended for conversation or reflection, education, and entertainment. It is not a substitute for professional counseling or mental health care, medical advice, legal advice, or other qualified professional guidance. And if you need that kind of help, please get it. And as we continue this season, we're going to keep talking about what healing looks like, and not pretending, and not forcing reconciliation, and not making everybody sit around the Thanksgiving table acting like nothing happened. Real healing, healthy boundaries, honest conversations, and whatever's moving forward looks like for you. Until next time, know your value, know you have worth, know that you're loved, and most importantly, remember, I love you more than I love my luggage. Y'all take care. I'll see you next Tuesday. Love you.